A person always has two reasons for doing something. One is beautiful and official, for everyone to see. The other is the real one, the one they prefer to keep silent about. This phrase is attributed to John Morgan. You've almost certainly seen his face, even if you don't know who he is. A gray-haired, mustachioed, stern man with a heavy gaze. It was him who became the model for the Monopoly game character. But behind this image lay a man who built the first truly global financial empire, saved the USA from bankruptcy several times, and controlled steel, railroads, electricity, weapons, money. In essence, half of the nation's economy. People said his influence surpassed that of the president, that he could decide the fate of entire nations, that he had literally bought America. Welcome to Paradoria. Enjoy watching. John Pierpont Morgan was born in 1837 in Connecticut. He wasn't poor, nor did he have to fight his way up from nothing. He came from a wealthy family with a long history. His grandfathers, great-grandfathers, and fathers were involved in transportation, trade, inns, and finance. They had connections in London. Some believe that through the Morgans, the Rothschilds entered the American market without appearing directly. John grew up as a very sickly child. Migraines, allergies, colds, vascular problems. He was self-conscious about his appearance and would hate being photographed all his life. Perhaps it was then that he first felt like an outsider, even within his own family. He rarely played with other children. He was educated at home and read extensively. He developed an early understanding of finance. When his health deteriorated further, his father sent him to the Azores. There, by the sea, amid sun and wind, John first felt something akin to freedom. At the age of 20, he married Amelia Sturgis. They were truly happy. They made plans. They dreamed. But she had tuberculosis, a disease that at the time almost always meant a death sentence. Morgan took her to resorts, sought out the best doctors, and spent whatever money was needed. It didn't help. 4 years after their wedding, Amelia died. For John, this was a blow from which he never fully recovered. Once again, he was alone. And then he made a choice, perhaps the most important of his life. He escaped into work. Money became his refuge, a way not to think, not to feel, not to remember. In 1861, he opened his own company and began engaging in currency speculation. That same year, the American Civil War began. The North versus the South, industry versus plantations, the abolition of slavery versus the old order. And Morgan quickly realized, war is a market. He sold weapons to both sides. The most famous deal involved 5,000 decommissioned rifles, bought at $3.50 and resold at $2,200. The profit? Over 600%. In today's terms, that would amount to millions. He himself had no desire to fight, and by law, he could buy his way out. He paid up and continued making money. After the war, they even tried to put him on trial for fraud, but to no avail. He had supplied the victors, and victors are never judged. Then came the age of railroads. America was growing, expanding, being knit together by steel rails. Hundreds of companies were laying tracks haphazardly, without any system. And once again, Morgan saw an opportunity. He didn't build the railroads himself. Instead, he bought them up, consolidated them, redrew the map, and forced competitors to cooperate, sometimes through persuasion, sometimes through threats, sometimes through money. This was how a vast, unified network emerged. At the same time, he was financing steel, factories, and oil. It was his railroads that granted discounts to John D. Rockefeller's fledgling Standard Oil, helping it grow into an oil behemoth. Morgan, Rockefeller, the Rothschilds. These names appeared together too often. And here, each person must decide for themselves where business ends and backroom dealings begin. In 1895, the USA faced a financial crisis. Banks were collapsing. Gold reserves were running out. The country stood on the brink of default, and there was no central bank. So Morgan went to the president and said, "I will get gold from Europe, but on my terms." The government agreed. He brought in millions of ounces of gold through his own channels, effectively saving the nation. In return, he gained colossal influence. Later, he helped secure the purchase of the Panama Canal, essentially presenting the USA with one of the world's most vital trade routes. He began to feel not just like a businessman, but like a man upon whom the fate of the nation depended. Perhaps for the first time in his life, he felt needed, not just by numbers on a balance sheet. Next came electricity, then steel, the deal with Andrew Carnegie, the creation of U.S. Steel, the world's first billion-dollar corporation. By the early 20th century, Morgan controlled railroads, electricity, steel, and finance, nearly half of the U.S. economy. But even that wasn't enough. In 1907, another crisis struck, a panic on Wall Street. Once again, Morgan and Rockefeller pushed through the idea of a Federal Reserve System, a private entity that would control the nation's money. The law was passed in 1913. The power to print dollars passed into the hands of the banks. An interesting fact: Morgan had invested in the company that owned the Titanic. He was meant to be on that very voyage, but he returned his ticket the day before departure. No one knows why. That same year, 1913, Morgan died in Rome, 6 months short of the full triumph of his system. And all of this grew out of one sickly boy who feared being alone. According to legend, Morgan's last words were simply, "Sally West." As a child on the Azores, John had a canary by that name. Perhaps in his final moments, he didn't remember deals, billions, or power. Instead, he recalled that little boy on the ocean shore with a bird in a cage who simply wanted someone to understand him. Because no matter how much money you earn, no matter how many countries you save, inside, you remain that same child, with your own fears and your own true reason to live. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Please like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts about this story in the comments. See you next time.